suspend the Rule 45, which requires 5-day notice prior to public hearing of a bill. Due to the recent referrals to Ways and Means, this is necessary. You just say that.
So there's a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion's carried.
Bipartisanship.
Okay.
Senator Brown, members of the committee, Senate Bill 5194 is under tab 11 in your books and involves creating one license for the sale of beer, wine, and spirits at retail for off-premise consumption. Just for brief background, the Liquor Cannabis Board issues a variety of retail licenses for the sale of liquor, both for off and on-premise consumption. Examples of retail licenses include grocery store licenses, beer and wine specialty shop licenses, restaurant tavern licenses, and spirits retailer licenses. These licenses allow the licensee to either sell beer or wine or spirits, but not both. To sell both, you need to get 2 licenses. Under this bill, a combination spirits, beer, and wine license is created that allow licensees to sell beer, wine, and spirits at retail for off-premise consumption, sell spirits to on-premise liquor retailers for resale at their licensed premise, and to export spirits. The Liquor and Cannabis Board can only issue these licenses to premises exceeding 10,000 square feet of fully enclosed retail space. The annual fee is $250, and current laws that apply to spirits retailers also apply to this new license. And
Senator Darnell has a question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Dean, can you tell me what each of those licenses currently cost? If it's being mushed together for $250 a year, what are they charged today for each of those?
The beer and wine specialty shop license is $100. I just have a few of them here. The grocery store license is $150. The spirits retailer license is $160. And the combination, this new combination one, as I mentioned, is $250. So that kind of leads into the fiscal impact of the bill. There is a reduction both to the general fund and the liquor revolving account of a total of $153,000 for the upcoming biennium. And the result of that reduction is because they don't quite add up to what the 2 licenses add up to.
All right, Senator King, welcome.
Well, thank you. I very much appreciate you hearing and considering this bill. I think you've had a very good description. It basically combines a couple of licenses to try and streamline it, and that's about as simply as I can say it. And would appreciate your consideration. And I would tell you that the bill came out of Commerce and Labor unanimously, and would ask for your support and be glad to answer any questions that I probably would have to refer to staff anyway, but anyway.
Any questions of the sponsor? Seeing none, thank you, Senator
Thank you very
King.
much for letting me go so I can get back to my committee. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to suspend the hearing on this bill and move to Senator Angel's bill, Senate Bill 5188. Dean, can we have a briefing, please?
Senate Bill 5188 is under tab 6 and is concerning the removal of land of current use property tax classifications due to certain natural disasters. This bill has a proposed substitute that has a technical correction that I'll be speaking to. Just for some background, the Constitution authorizes qualifying agricultural, timber, and open space lands to be valued on the basis of their current use rather than fair market value. The open space program allows agricultural lands, timberlands, and other open space lands to be assessed according to their value as they are currently used rather than the highest and best use. When property is removed from the current use valuation program, the owner must pay additional taxes, penalties, and interest. However, property removed from current use classifications due to a natural disaster such as a flood, windstorm, earthquake, or other calamity is exempt from the additional taxes. There's also a program called the Designated Forest Land Program that allows timber on certain lands to be used primarily, on certain lands used primarily for growing and harvesting timber to be exempt from real property tax and instead subject to the timber excise tax. When land is removed from this program, there's also compensating taxes that must be paid at the point of removal. This bill simply adds wildfire to one of the natural disasters when removing lands from an open space program. And for the designated forest land, it adds all the language that is currently in the open space land that you don't have to pay the compensation tax if you remove it because of natural disasters such as flood, windstorm, earthquake, wildfire, or other calamity. The bill has a $42,000 reduction to the general fund.
Any questions of Dean? Seeing none, Senator Angel, I'd like to talk to your bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and all of the committee. I'm a Western Washington senator pleading for Eastern Washington support. Senate Bill 5188 had its origin in the terrible fires that you saw in 2014 and 2015 in Eastern Washington. In 2014, the Carlton Complex fire burned over 250,000 acres of private land. The following year, the Okanagan Complex fire burned over 270,000 acres of private land. Significant portions of this burned land were in private timber. The two different property taxes that you heard about, the open space timber and designated forest land, is usually 20 acres and over. The open space part is usually 20 acres and under. So these two categories, if they are assigned to this property, when they come out of the exemption program, yes, they are paying all the compensating tax, interest, and penalties for the time they were in the program. Now, where this bill is needed, in RCW 8434, it has a provision that waives the compensating tax if property is removed due to natural disaster. However, in RCW 84.33, it does not have that same provision. Yet both of these categories had fields of black sticks. This bill simply adds the natural disaster waiver of compensating tax to the designated forest land statute, and it clarifies that a wildfire may be the basis for a natural disaster trigger, adding fire to earthquakes, windstorm, and floods that are already specifically listed in the statute. This bill fixes the unequal treatment of our citizens that suffer the same kind of losses at no fault of their own. So I ask your support and consideration of these citizens that are currently left out. If you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer those.
Any questions?
No, it looks like we don't have any questions. Thank you very much for introducing the bill.
Thank you for hearing it.
All right, we will put Senate Bill 5188 on hold, and we'll move on to a briefing on Senate Bills 5726 and 5727. And Senator Hobbs, if you'd like to come on up, we can let you can speak to both your bills.
Senator Braun, members of the committee, for the record, I'm Amanda Cecil, staff to the committee, briefing both 5726 and Senate Bill 5727, both related to addressing health benefits for public school employees. For background, school districts and educational service districts may provide employees with basic benefits such as health care, or they can do that separately, or they can do that through the Public Employees Benefits Board. Basic health benefits that are locally bargained in most are locally bargained in most districts. So the employee share coverage and coverage is different by district amongst the 296 districts and 9 educational service districts. The Public Employee Benefit Board that provides benefits to state employees generally has a cost split of 85% 75% of the average cost is paid by the employer, and the remainder is paid by the employee. Under the first bill, Senate Bill 5726, beginning January 1st of 2019, or by a date determined by the Public Employee Benefit Board that's not later than December 1st of 2021, school districts and educational service districts must provide basic health care through the Public Employee Benefit Board. In order to be eligible, a school employee must be expected to work at least 630 hours per school year or during the school year, and this is lower than the threshold for most general government employees. Also beginning in January, basic benefits and employee contributions are no longer subject to local collective bargaining, but school employees would be covered under at the Healthcare Coalition table where state employees collectively bargain for health care. Districts would still be able to bargain and provide supplemental coverage for vision, dental, group life, and group long-term disability, and a number of reports and data sets that are due annually are eliminated. We did recently get the fiscal note, or a preliminary fiscal note on this bill that shows the cost increase by bringing in the school employees just to the cost increase to the employees that are currently covered now. And for the 2017-19 biennium, it is 3.7 million general fund, 9 million, almost 9 million across all the funds, and for 4 years it's 11 million in near general fund expenditures. The second bill, 5727, also related to healthcare for public school employees. This bill would not consolidate the healthcare, but rather it would require that school districts and educational service districts that do provide basic benefit health coverage must meet a premium ratio for full family coverage that is no more than a certain amount relative to single payer coverage, and that's phased in beginning in 2018-19 school year, or January 2019, they have to meet a ratio of no more than 5 times the cost for single coverage, and then in 1920 school year, it goes down to 4 to 1, and in 2021, it goes down to a coverage ratio of 3 to 1 and stays there, and if there's any pooled savings that are used, those must be used to maintain that same coverage. We also just got the fiscal note on that, and it shows indeterminate. And if there's any questions?
No questions. Thank you very much. Senator Hobbs.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. For the record, my name is State Senator Steve Hobbs from the 44th District, obviously testifying in support for 5726 and 5727. These are good, little, non-controversial bills that I give to you on this Valentine's Day. As many of you know, I have been trying to do this for many years, and those of you that have been here longer than I have, Phil Talmadge actually introduced these bills back in the 90s. And since that time, many of reports have come before this committee. Some of you have heard these reports as well. Reports from independent organizations, reports from Healthcare Authority, Office of the Insurance Commissioner, and JLARC. Some of the things that you have heard from these reports is that 9,000 school employees are without insurance and 30,000 of their dependents. And that was in 2012. And in that same plan, it said that with the plan that I'm introducing now, 50% of the teachers would actually pay less. Now, that was 2012. The healthcare premiums increased around 35%. So I would say that more would probably benefit from this, especially certainly families, teachers with young families and classified employees. I know that this does cost money, but I also know that both the Democratic and Republican plans for education provides pay increases. Well, if you don't do anything about the healthcare system, the premiums will increase and it'll just simply be absorbed by healthcare increases. And not only that, it's the right thing to do to cover these people. This system is simply not working when you have, 256 school districts with 1,000 insurance pools and 300 plans. Some of the suggestions that I might give to you, Chair, is it would probably lower the cost if you put them into a SEB, if you wish to do that. And that would be putting all the K through 12 into a separate plan or pool. If you wish to keep this one, I would suggest that you add more K-12 dedicated representation on the PEP board to make it a little fair. There'll be other people that'll be testifying today, and I hope you'll listen to them. One is David Updike, who actually used to be part of the SQUIM teacher. Actually, he is part of the SQUIM Education Association. He was the president of the bargaining unit there. So there are teachers who've been calling in on this. And lastly, I just want to say this. This bill has been obviously painful for me politically. And I'm not going to give up because I know this is the right thing to do. And I am open to compromise. And I hope that we can get this bill out of here so I won't appear in front of you anymore, and that we will cover 9,000 more people and 30,000 dependents, and that we will have affordable, quality health insurance. I don't have any intention, this is not the intention of this bill to attack any union or union busting or anything that might be coming out of maybe a certain organization. All I want to do, and I'm telling you this from the bottom of my heart, and this is a truthful statement, all I want to do is to provide affordable, quality health insurance for the men and women that teach our kids, for the men and women who drive our school buses, who are maybe doing the paperwork in the back room, who are feeding our kids lunches and morning breakfast. It's all I'm trying to do. So instead of attacking me, just come up with suggestions or new ideas so that we can cover more people because they deserve it. So thank you, Mr. Chair, for allowing this bill to be heard, and I'm open to any questions.
Senator Rolfes, and then Senator Kaiser.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator Hobbs, love your goals. When we heard that we had a report on this in our education task force meeting, and it had a really big price tag, and we were all like, whoa, we thought this was going to save us money. Mm-hmm. There's no fiscal note for it. Part of the issue for this has kind of been in the past that when we do this, the state needs to fund this. So otherwise you're relying completely 100% on local levies to take up the slack. Do you know what the price tag is, and have you had conversations about the best way for the states to partner with a school district?
So I've heard anywhere between, what we phase this in, I believe, by this, by like rural districts or something. We phased it in, I believe. And if we didn't, we should do that. But I think the total price tag was I've heard anywhere from 200 million to high as 400 million. I will also say that, again, if you're going to give raises to teachers and classified employees, which I'm sure both sides intend to do, it's not going to make a bit of difference if you don't control the healthcare costs. Additionally, I'm not, and I know some of you might not like this, but I don't mind doing a little bit of revenue out there to pay for this if that's what we have to do. But look, we can't allow 9,000, and that number's gone up since this report, 9,000 people to go out with health insurance and 30,000 dependents. And again, I am open to any suggestions.
Thank you. Senator Kaiser.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Senator Hobbs, for bringing this forward again. It's always interesting to chew on this problem. The Oregon experiment was undertaken 3 years ago, and I'm wondering if you have any information on how that has actually happened since they organized around this and actually accomplished incorporating all of their local school districts into a state.
Right. I don't, other than, talking to some of the teachers down there, and their healthcare costs, the premiums have definitely been lowered. In addition to, this does save money for the local school districts, so it will cost the state. It will save money for the local school districts. But what's interesting about that you bring that up, Senator Kaiser, is that in Oregon, it was their teachers association that brought this idea forward. But over in Oregon, it was a little different. It was I think the Oregon School Directors Association that had control of the healthcare market, if you will, down there. And that's why the teachers were fed up, because you had all these pools and the healthcare cost was so high. And so they brought this forward to bring it under a single pool. And okay, I was stupid. I didn't look at the situation here in Washington State, and I decided, hey, I'm going to do a good thing. I want to provide quality health, affordable health care to teachers and classified staff. But unfortunately, I didn't take a good look at who was controlling the health care, and so here we are. But you know what? I'm dedicated to try to push this as much as I can.
All right. Well, thank you very much for being here, and we will move directly into testimony on both these bills. So if you're signed up for both 20, or just tell us when you're up here whether you're testifying on one or both bills when you're up here, so we know what we're listening to, and we'll get them done at the same time. So we'll start off with the pro panel: Doug Nelson, Donna Hanson, and Kim Lackey, and then we'll go to a con panel: Julie Salvi, Lynn Soren, and another David Eisbinger. Oh, we have a remote testify on this bill. We'll go to the remote testify immediately after this group. If you can set that up, please.
Senator Braun, members of the committee, for the record, Doug Nelson, representing public school employees of Washington. This issue has quite a history. The legislature has tried to address it since 1990. You have put laws into effect encouraging, suggesting, recommending, but school districts have recognized you didn't have any penalties. There was nothing going to stop them from ignoring your laws. So the problem has only grown. It hasn't changed. So we tried in 2012 with 5940 to try and get it to school districts to take it more seriously. It didn't work really well. So we're back here again. And so we're very supportive of 5726. There is a cost attached to it. It's robust. We're going to be treated the same as state employees. For classified employees, that's a big deal. We have more options as classified employees. We're treated, half-time or more are treated well, just like you treat your half-time state employees. So we like 5727. If we can't get 5726, we've got to do 5727. But I'll tell you something, if you don't have an enforcement mechanism, school districts are going to ignore it, period. Thank you.
Senator Kaiser.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Doug, 630 hours to qualify is a pretty low number. Is there some way we can dial up that threshold? Because that's part of the probable problem here, is part-timers who are really part-time.
So the number is 3.5 hours per day for 180 days. What we tried to do is model it somewhat after the community and technical colleges, where we're trying to compare the average work year for K-12, and the average work year is the teachers. It's the 1440. So what we have done in most of our negotiations is we either have 4 hours as the threshold for insurance, medical insurance, or 3.5. So that's where the 630 comes from.
I know, it's just a little low.
Is the 3.5.
It's just a little low in terms of other categories. In the state employee pool, half-time, I believe, is 20 hours.
Yeah.
And so we cover, but it's because they're working half-time, not just quarter time. So let's see if we can make some adjustments.
Senator, I can tell you I've gotten beaten up over having 4 hours a day, which is what the standard was before. And everybody said, no, we have 3.5, and people are going to be cut off. So, I'm trying to balance and come up with a compromise.
All right. So we have other questions, but just for staff and for everybody out there, we have a lot of folks signed to testify on this and other bills today. So let's have a minute 30 timer on future testimony. And Senator Frocht has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll try to be brief. So, Doug, on your the sheet that was handed out here, the summary, thank you for this. The very last bullet says unknown savings by moving K-12 employees on Obamacare back to employer-provided insurance. That kind of piqued my interest. How many of your folks are on Medicaid or on subsidized plans on the exchange right now?
Senator, I wish we had the exact number.
But there are some.
Oh, I think there's a lot more than some.
Okay.
The anecdotes from our members is a lot. So for instance, 9,000 employees, if we went to 5726, 9,000 employees, largely classified employees, my members, would be able to afford insurance again.
What kinds of positions are they in?
Those are bus drivers, those are some custodians, those are food service employees that are 6 or 7 hours a day, but they can't even afford the school district insurance, so they go on Obamacare. And the same thing is true for dependents. There are 30,000 dependents that will get insurance coverage through the school districts that now, very likely, many of them are getting it through the Medicaid.
Thank you.
All right, go ahead, please.
Hi, my name is Amy Lindsay, and I am a teacher in the Pioneer School District, which is in the Shelton area. And I come here today to convey that the high cost of family health care in the K-12 system is a significant problem and burden for many teachers. As such, I strongly support the passage of Senate Bill 5726. As a teacher who requires full family coverage, my out-of-pocket monthly cost is $1,200 for a mid-tier Premera plan. It represents 43% of my take-home pay and is the largest expense in our budget, constituting 1/3 of my family's monthly spending. This amounts to a significant financial burden for my family and material affects our ability to save for such things as retirement and college for our kids. And when the constant annual medical premium increases are considered, the burden is only getting worse. If I had a comparable plan through the public employee system, my cost would be a mere $270 a month. This difference in cost is staggering, and the benefit to employees needing family coverage is so obvious that I ask myself, why would K-12 resist such a change and not just do it? High medical costs are making it increasingly unfeasible for many of those needing family coverage to remain teachers. In closing, in 2012, Senate Bill 5940 put the responsibility on districts and education associations to figure out and implement reforms for affordable family medical coverage. In the 5 years since, family medical coverage has not become more affordable. In fact, the opposite has occurred. So it is now time for the legislature to step in and pass 5726, keeping in mind the lessons of 5940. And in order to ensure that the needed reforms actually happen, the bill must be sufficiently resourced, kept enforceable, and not watered down. Thank you.
Go ahead.
My name is Mark Troba. I am from Olympia. I strongly support Senate Bill 5726. I believe that beyond this bill's relief of inequities and financial burdens which currently exist in the K-12 healthcare system, the bill will also have a tangible role in addressing the recognized teacher shortage in Washington. Certainly the solution to the teacher shortage will need to be multifaceted, but in any scenario, current teacher retention will no doubt be high in the legislature's list. With retention in mind, consider the following. 2 teachers, each making $50,000 a year and equally satisfied with their jobs. Who is more likely to leave the profession for financial reasons? The one who has little or no out-of-pocket medical cost, or the one whose medical cost is 50% of their take-home? The answer is self-evident. Consider also the age demographic of employees who need family coverage. People with children at home overwhelmingly fall into a range of their late 20s to their mid-50s. This specific demographic, if able to be retained, has many, many working years left. What better place to invest to help keep the profession staffed for years to come? So to close, as you debate this bill and scrutinize the needed resources, as well as expend your political capital to make it happen, know that the return on these investments will be that not only are you fixing grave inequities in the healthcare, K-12 healthcare, but that these teachers will be able to stay in the profession for many years to come. And the taxpayers and the legislator could not ask for a better long-term return on investment than that.
Great. Thank you very much. And before the next panel comes up, we have the remote testimony. Is it ready to go? All right, here we go. Welcome via the electrons.
Is that us here in Port Angeles?
We can see you. I don't know if you can see us.
I can see you. I just wasn't sure if we were the only remote callers.
You're it.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and committee. My name is David Updike. I am a school psychologist. I work in the Sequim School District, and I'm representing myself, speaking in favor of Bill 5727 and 5726. I've insured my spouse and my young children for a number of years, and I want to take you back to the year 2010 for a moment when I paid $150 a month for my insurance premium, and that was for the whole family of the cheapest plan available to me. And then the following summer, the insurance company raised their rates 7%, and I understood that rates were going up, but my actual out-of-pocket went up 100%. And so I dug into the data based on that because I didn't understand why I was paying 100% more when I knew that everybody's plans had only gone up 7%. I also knew that some teachers, next door to my room were paying nothing, $0 year after year, and had richer benefits actually. So I dug into the data, and my conclusion is that the traditional pooling method simply does not work. It basically shields about half of our members, half of our teachers in our bargaining group from paying anything, and there aren't really consequences for the plan choices that half make. So there aren't really incentives in place, and then the other half have strong incentives to choose the lowest plan and even drop dependents once the costs go up too much. So in our particular bargaining group, we decided to change our pooling system after much discussion and voting, and we now for a handful of years have had a system where it's one basic plan offered to everyone, and then if there's a shortfall from what the state gives us, we pay for it with a percentage. So now everyone has an incentive to be very careful about what dependents they cover and what plan choice they choose. They don't choose a rich plan if they don't need it because they pay a percentage. This new system made it possible for us to have zero premium costs for members for several years. So everyone, including whole family coverage, cost $0 for several years. And even now, a handful of years later, a family pays $80 a month, and a single coverage is $40. So it's about twice as much to cover a whole family, and the costs are very low. I can't see a timer, so I'm probably about out of time here, but just in closing, I want to say that health savings account money is actually put into each person's account in addition. So the $40 and the $80 is really not for the premium. It goes straight into a health savings account, and we get even more cash. So just to clarify, we are able to stretch the money very far with a percentage system. Our costs are low, and so it might seem strange that I'm speaking in favor of the bill because I would almost surely pay more if this bill passed 5726. But I'm speaking for all the families out there that do not have such a good situation. The Senate needs to do something to help all families have a more equitable situation. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Go ahead. Are both
Mr. Yes.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, I am Brian Bird from SQUIM. I'm representing myself and supporting Senate Bill 5726 and 5727. I wish these bills had been passed 20 years ago. I taught in the SQUIM school district for 32 years and retired in June 2016. I was the chief negotiator for the SQUIM Education Association for 25 years. No issue was harder to bargain than insurance benefits, and it was always hardest on our side of the table. The problem has always been what it meant by the term pool. There were no directions from the state, and every district made up their own rules. The prevailing view in most districts is that a teacher gets a salary based on their own education and experience, and then more salary to purchase health insurance. The perception is that the extra salary is actually the FTE allocation from the healthcare authority. Many people think that is their money. Which leads to conflict at the local level that we don't need to have. Other state employees don't have that. Back in the 1980s, when I started teaching, there was a single plan in a district, and you signed up for the level of coverage that you needed with either your spouse or children or any other dependents. As time went on and health insurance costs went up, that's where Plan 1, Plan 2, Plan 3, Plan 4 came. We had to add more and more plans to make any kind of insurance affordable for families. So now families are not only burdened with higher out-of-pocket costs, they also have higher deductibles and higher copays. It's high time to take action for the state, and I really support this bill 5726. Thank you.
All right, thank you both for dialing in. It's good to see we can pull in testimony from all over the state. So with that, we will move on to the next panel. Julie Salvi, Lynn Soren, and David Eisminger. And after that, we'll go back to a pro panel. Karen Carter, Mark Trubo, and I had previously called up Donna Hanson, but I don't know if she came up. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, Chair Braun, members of the committee. For the record, I'm Julie Salvi, representing the Washington Education Association. We have signed in opposed to both pieces of legislation. We are supportive of lowering costs for families and part-time employees in the K-12 system, but we feel this issue is best addressed by focusing on the funding of K-12 health benefits. Funding provided for K-12 employees is lower than what is provided for state employees. When the legislature passed the goal to have 3-to-1 family ratio, it also included a goal to have parity with state employees. Since that time, that parity has actually become worse, not better. The state employee rate, when they were last matched in 2010, since that time, state employee rate has grown 19%. The K-12 health benefit allocation has grown 5%. Since the legislation passed, there has been a $12 per month increase in the allocation rate for K-12 employees. In addition, there's another difference in how K-12 is funded. For state employees, if you are half-time or above, you get the full allocation. In K-12, that is prorated. And so a district that has 2 FTE staff in K-12 would receive $780 per month for those health benefits for those 2 employees. And a state agency would receive $1,000 more per month because they would receive $888 for each of those 2 employees. Today, we have a system that has greater choices and employee voice. PEB is an option for school districts to opt into, but it is one that has not been selected by very many in K-12 because of these funding differences and because it is then unaffordable for districts. We recommend that you focus on the funding of health benefits in K-12 first as the best approach to make health benefits more affordable. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Braun, members of the committee. For the record, I'm Len Soren with Premier Blue Cross, joining you today to testify in opposition to Senate Bill 5726. Senate Bill 5726 will increase cost and risk to the state of Washington, while any reforms the legislature may wish to pursue in connection with family single equity can be achieved under the current structure. Currently, school districts and enrollees have a wide array of choices for their health care coverage. There are 7 plans offered under the WEA program alone. Districts also have the ability to offer plans outside the WEA program, including PPOs and a group health, HMO offering. Finally, school districts have the ability to join PEB if they wish. This full range of choices would not exist under 5726. It's worth noting that the current private sector plan structure for K-12 education are also extremely efficient. For example, in our K-12 book of business at Primera, our administrative costs to operate the plans are 4% of premium. It's a very efficient private sector approach. Although we've not seen a fiscal note yet, it's clear there will be considerable costs incurred. Well, there is a fiscal note now, in the range of, I think, $22 million presently, in connection with the consolidation. This doesn't include the loss of millions of dollars in premium revenue from the insured K-12 book of business to the state. Finally, we know the legislature has for some time been interested in equity reforms to the current structure. However, a costly consolidation is unnecessary for those reforms to occur. Whatever reforms the legislature may wish to achieve can be done under the current private sector structure. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Braun and members of the committee. I'm Dave Eisminger, the Deputy Director of the Public Employee Benefits Board Program, or the PEB program. I'm here on behalf of the Healthcare Authority and at the request of Senator Hobbs to provide some brief context and technical insight on Senate Bill 5726. So I'm not here as pro or con, I'm here as other at the request of Senator Hobbs. There have been a variety of proposals about possible consolidation of purchasing of K-12 in educational school districts over the years, and although consolidation work would in no way be easy, the general idea presented by this bill would be among the simpler ways from an administrative and operations standpoint for implementing a consolidation. Importantly, the design of this bill is similar to Scenario 1 in the Healthcare Authority's 2015 K-12 Consolidation System report to Jay Lark, the governor, and the legislature. One significant deviation that has been highlighted is that the eligibility threshold is set differently than for state employees. The state employees' eligibility threshold is set at 0.5 FTE or 720 hours, and this bill sets eligibility threshold at 630 hours or 0.473 FTE. So that means all of the estimates from the Healthcare Authority's report in 2015 would be conservative estimates because the impacts would be larger than because the eligibility threshold is lower. One other piece of context that you may be aware of is that a variety of school districts and ESDs currently voluntarily access PEB benefits for their employees. Of the 296 school districts and 9 ESDs, 71 currently participate with PEB benefits through a contract with the Healthcare Authority. 40 of them cover just a portion of their bargaining units, whereas 31 cover the entire school district's employees, and 70 of the 71 contract for the full array of PEB benefits of medical, life, dental, and long-term disability. Only one contracts for medical only.
Just to be clear, so essentially 25% of the school districts are already using PEB, roughly.
There are interactions with 25% of the administrations, but it represents half of those represent only a part of their bargaining unit. So it's not 25% of the FTE count across the school districts, but it is interactions with 25% of the school districts. What's the FTE count percentage? I will follow up with you. It's a couple of thousand. I believe the last time we checked, it was between 2 and 3% of the K-12 population.
Got it. Thank you. Go ahead. So I'm sorry.
Oh, no, that actually concludes my remarks, and I'm happy to answer any questions or provide follow-up from the agency.
No questions. Thank you all very much. Oh, yeah, we do have a question from Senator Conway. Stand by.
Actually, I have a question for staff on some of the testimony.
Oh, you're free to go. It's a staff question.
Basically, I want to know what the rate of reimbursement for the schools and the PEB are. Julie, I don't know who answers that question. I'd rather have staff do it, Julie. Can you give me the changes in the rate of reimbursement under the budget for school employees for schools as opposed to public employees?
All right, we will move on to, that's a question for future, or are you going to answer it now?
I can answer that right now.
Oh, answer it right now.
Senator Conway, this is Amanda Cecil, staff to the committee. The cost allocation model allocates $780 per FTE, so it's $780 per FTE. The state employee rate is $888 per month.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Now, next up is, we'll just go to the bottom. Jessica Varus, Deborah Campbell, and David, oh no, David has already testified. Anyone else that hasn't testified on this bill, come on up.
Hey, members put me on their list. Sorry, I didn't get to see your brother.
For FTE under the state, that's PEB. This is schools. I'm sorry, schools is 780 and 800.
Go right ahead.
All right, thank you, Chairman Braun and members of the committee for your time today. I am Karen Carter. I'm a paraeducator from the greater Spokane area. I work in the transportation department. My husband is a driver in the transportation department, happens to be my driver. And together we pay over $1,000 a month for health insurance. That does not include our deductibles, our co-pays, our medication. All that is added on top of that. That adds up to approximately 30% of our annual income for us to have insurance. I have a disabled daughter, so my daughter will be on forever. We will never have a child age out. I support these bills and can see that through my experiences that something drastically needs to be done. Families with this kind of insurance cannot afford to live.
All right, thank you. Go ahead.
I am very nervous, guys.
It's not that scary. We'll be fine.
Okay.
We're nervous too, just in case you're wondering.
Okay.
I'm kind of freaked out.
Yeah, I'm not far behind. Thank you, Chairman Braun and committee, for allowing me to come talk with you. My name is Kimberly Ann Woolley Lackey, and I work for the Puyallup School District as an office manager. I was invited to speak in front of you because I have a concern of the rising cost of public school employee health care insurance rates, and that is why I asked you to support Senate Bill 5726 or 5727. When I first started my job approximately 15 years ago, I was a single mother that was able to afford health care for my daughter and I. Come 15 years later, I can't even afford to have my 2 children on my school district health insurance. In approximately 2008, we as state employees were asked not to request pay raises. We as a union employee of the state, school employees, accepted this request for help with funding. For 6 years, I did not have a pay raise. I had no cost of living, no step increase because I was already at the highest pay level. But did the state hold our health insurance costs during those 6 years? No, they skyrocketed. This is ridiculous. I may be just an office manager, but we are the public school employees of Washington, and we are taking care of the next generation. Why can't we be taken care of too? I talked to my union representative before coming here today to confirm the 2 tiny raises I did receive. In 2014, I received a 2% state pass-through. In 2015, a 1% state pass-through. Approximately 3 years ago, I had to ask my husband to take the children under his health care insurance because mine would be over $1,500 a month. I was very hesitant because his insurance has a $4,000 deductible per child. That means I have to pay $4,000 before they pay online. Can I finish?
Go ahead.
Okay. My current health insurance coverage is $400 a month just for me, not my kids, just me. My husband's is $167.28 for him and the children. What do you think I would rather pay a year? $2,007 a month for my husband's insurance or $10,800 a month for me and my kids? I just want to please take my information into consideration while you make decisions about the future of K-12 health insurance costs. We need a fighting chance too. And thank you for your time.
Thank you. Good job. Relax. All right. Go ahead, please.
Mr. Chair and members of the committee, my name is Debbie Campbell, and I'm the Chief Financial Officer at Sumner School District. I'm also the Benefits Administrator for the Sumner School District and have been so for about 20 years. When we were asked to come up with a way to provide health care benefits to our staff at a 3-to-1 ratio, we took it very seriously. Most of the people in our region took it very seriously and tried to develop plans. In the first year, in 14-15, we accomplished that in Sumner School District and maintain a 3-to-1 ratio with our classified and our administrators and continue to this day. In 14-15, and I have data sets that I'll be glad to leave with you, the majority of our classified and administrators full-time could pay $70 as a single person to receive their full benefits, and our families were paying $210. That was Easy Choice Blue Cross plan through the WEA. How did we get there? I brought all of our bargaining units together and I told them what we were trying to accomplish that was a state law to achieve. We also worked through the details of Obamacare and we developed a plan. And when I asked my classified people and our administrators whether we should go a little bit at a time or rip the Band-Aid off, they said rip the Band-Aid off. And we got a plan that does not cost and a fee schedule for the employee to share the cost of benefits that does not cost the district anymore. Where we are running across the brick wall is with our teachers. They were at the table too. They understood that it was a state law, and the only progress I've been able to make is a single teacher on the same plan pays $15. That's all the progress we've been able to make. I've gone through 2 collective bargaining sessions, bringing benefits to the table, and not only do we not talk about them with our teachers in our benefits committee, they refuse to bargain. We have good labor relations in Sumner on everything but benefits. The party line is don't budge. We no longer can get competitive bids because in the past, before this, we would get bids from vendors that would say, we'll take half of your labor force, we'll take the classified and offer at this rate. The last two bids, it was everyone or no one. And we can't make any progress. I support both of these bills. I believe you asked if there was a different threshold for eligibility. I would suggest that you use the same threshold that we use for retirement, which is 3.75 hours. That would align our work. If you're eligible for retirement, you're also eligible for medical benefits. And I support either bill because we need help getting there. It's the right thing to do for our teachers. Our young teachers have not only the same amount of union dues to pay, regardless of their salary, they pay childcare, they pay the highest medical premiums, and they make the lowest salary. So those are the people we've been trying in Sumner to cost shift, and our families on the teacher's side are wondering how come their insurance costs more than the classified people, and it doesn't cost us any more. Please help us by taking action on either of these bills. We can't do it without you.
I'd ask you to wrap up. Y'all done?
I'm done.
Great. Well, thank you all for being here. Looks like we have 3 more in the front row. Come on up. So we're trying to be patient with folks if they go a little over, but please keep your comments as brief as possible so we can get everybody in the allotted time.
Okay.
Jump
Thank
right
you,
in
Chairman Braun and members of the committee for your time today. I'm Donna Hanson, and I'm a librarian's assistant, without a librarian, in a middle school here in Washington. I'm on the opposite end of the insurance spectrum. After 25 years in my district, my children are all grown up, and my husband is retired. I insure only me. I pay no money for my premium out of my paycheck. It saddens me that my district has made absolutely no strides to meet the 1-to-3 ratio and the everyone pays something for their insurance that was specified in 5940. I have coworkers who bring home little or nothing because almost all of their paycheck goes to insuring their families. They also have to take the less rich plans in order to do that. In addition, I have a daughter who is a second-grade teacher, also in my school district. She's given me 2 lovely grandchildren, but has chosen not to marry their father because if she did, she'd no longer be able to get insurance on the state plan for him. It would cost her $800 a month to add her husband to her plan. He's young and gets us insurance on the exchange for $228. Insurance costs should not be the deciding factor to be married or not. I support either of these bills as a way to make insurance more affordable for our school employees with families. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Fred Yancey. I'm here today on behalf of the school administrators, school principals, and also to help in school directors. We were very much in support of 5726. We think simple logic tells you that to go from 764 plans, which is currently what's available, to a handful of plans through an existing organization, PEB, it just makes logical sense. I was a personal consumer of a PEB plan, the Uniform Medical, and I found it just as rich as what I had when I was working in school districts and substantially less expensive. I would just caution you that it's important to keep in mind that funding of benefits for school employees is, you still have that responsibility and it may have to add a little more. There is a fiscal note that still has left a mystery as to what this, will really cost, and that's somewhat frustrating. And I would also suggest that you don't move to a school employee board, a separate board. You already have a board, you just beef the membership of the existing board to have representation. On the next bill, the 3-to-1 bill, we signed in as other. My only concern is a 3-to-1 ratio, although it's very admirable, we don't control rates. So if today the rate is $100 for an individual, $300 for a family, and tomorrow the rate goes $100 for an individual, $400 for a family, me as a school district, I'm on the hook for that extra $100 because you've locked us in and said we can't charge any more than a 3-to-1. So there's an inherent potential liability for school districts when you tie a 3-to-1 ratio and not make provision for any time the ratio is exceeded that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, for the record, I'm Jessica Vavris with the Washington State School Directors Association, signing in support of 5726. For the past 2 decades, school directors across the state have prioritized positions supporting a state consolidated system for healthcare benefits. This bill does that. This bill also supports our positions related to strategies to address teacher shortages and recruiting and retaining highly qualified educators for our workforce. This bill provides a sensible phase-in approach for this important transition while also attending to keeping the dollars at home for teachers who need them. We believe the PEB approach would provide a continued choice and save dollars for teachers and is a necessary next step as part of 5940. One small example, you've heard some great anecdotes today. Our executive director, new director, who was a former superintendent from Rainier School District, transitioned from the plan that he was on in Rainier to the PEB plan. Same doctors, same coverage, same everything for him and his family. Went from $800 out of pocket a month to $117, so over almost a $700 savings for him and his family. So again, lots of examples, and that's just one, but we would strongly support this and look forward to working with you on it. Thank you.
Great, thank you all. No questions. Just checking to make sure we got anybody. Anybody else out that wanted to testify on one of these bills? All right, well, thank you. Thanks for all the actual school employees that showed up and testified. We really appreciate your testimony on these bills. We will end the hearing on both Senate Bill 5726 and 5727, and we'll go back to the top for Senate Bill 5148 if we could have a brief.
Senator Braun, Senate Bill 5148 is regarding the business and occupation tax deduction for nonprofit cooperative finance organizations. Just briefly, background, nonprofit cooperative finance organizations provide secure or otherwise arranged loans for rural electric cooperatives. Rural electric cooperatives provide utility services in rural areas of the state. In 2013, the legislature granted a B&O deduction to nonprofit cooperative organizations on amounts derived from loans to rural electric cooperatives. The exemption expires in July 1 of 2017. This bill simply removes the expiration date, so it goes on. So it no longer has an expiration date, and the B&O tax deduction is also exempted from the automatic 10-year expiration for tax preferences, as well as JLARC's tax preference review. There is no fiscal impact on this bill as it affects less than 3 organizations.
All right, no question. Oh, question from Senator Carlisle.
There's no fiscal impact that's publicly reported.
That's correct.
But there is a fiscal impact.
There is a fiscal impact.
Correct. Okay, great. The sponsor is not here, so we'll proceed directly to testimony. Grant Nelson and Dan Brooks, if you'd come on up.
Thank you, Chair Braun and members of the committee. For the record, Grant Nelson here on behalf of the Washington Rural Electric Cooperative Association, here testifying in strong support of Senate Bill 5148. I want to thank the chair for the opportunity to testify and also for all the support, the prime sponsor and co-sponsors for the support of this bill, those including those on the committee. WRCA represents nonprofit electric cooperatives in Washington state, and our members provide utility services to approximately 280,000 members. The National Rural Utilities Cooperative Financing Corporation, or CFC, is a nonprofit organization that provides needed financing in the form of loans to our member cooperatives. And I'm going to be very brief today. There is a one-page handout that provides a lot of background and summary information on this legislation. There's only 3 states in the whole nation that charge B&O tax on the interest earned provided in the form of loans to our member co-ops. That's Washington, California, and Hawaii. And in 2013, as was mentioned, the Senate passed legislation by a vote of 43-5, which allowed the CFC to deduct Washington's B&O tax collected on this interest earned. As was mentioned by the staff report, there is an expiration date of July 1, and this bill removes that sunset date. And then finally, in October of 2016, the Citizens Commission for Performance Measurement of Tax Preferences voted to continue this B&O tax deduction, and this legislation is consistent with that recommendation. I want to thank you again for the opportunity to testify. Happy to answer any questions and also have Mr. Brooks testify as well.
Chairman Braun and members of the committee, for the record, my name is Dan Brooks. I'm the General Manager of Elmhurst Mutual Power and Light. And I'd like to also thank the sponsors of this bill and the opportunity to speak today. I'd like to be economical with my words and probably more importantly your time, so I'm just going to be a quick overview of why I'm here today. I'm here representing Elmhurst Mutual Power. We're a nonprofit cooperative serving approximately 15,000 meters in the Parkland, Spanaway area of Pierce County. I'm also here representing the WRECA, as Elmhurst is a member of this organization. All of these utilities in common that I'm here representing have the same business model. We are nonprofit and provide service with a paper-thin margin. When we borrow money, our member consumers bear the cost of the debt service. If the financial institutions we borrow from, i.e. CFC, pay a B&O tax on the interest earnings, that cost will trickle down to our members. Controlling expenses is a crucial part of our providing service to customers, and I know each WRECA utility could provide a compelling example of why we need to control these expenses. I'll give you an example of why Elmhurst needs to. I had mentioned we have 15,000 meters we serve. Every month, we have 10 to 12% of our consumers are up for disconnect because they can't pay their power bill. You do the math, that is between 1,500 and 1,800 of our consumers are in a position where their power is going to be turned off because they can't meet that expense. That's why it's so important for us to control our expenses. In closing, on behalf of Elmhurst and the WRECA, we appreciate your time today and encourage you to pass Senate Bill 5148. Thank you.
All right, Senator Carlisle.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Grant, I just want to clarify one point. You said that the Audit Review Committee recommended continuation, but there's a couple of conclusions. They recommended some review and clarification, but they say, and I quote, "There's no evidence that the preference is providing tax relief for customers of rural electric cooperatives." They also say that over 99% of the loans are made to out-of-state entities, to entities out of Washington state. So I guess I'm just a little thrown by your statement that they're recommending elimination of the expiration date. And I understand the premise of the bill. The bill is to no longer treat this as a tax preference, but it is a tax preference given that California, Hawaii, and Washington have this taxation model. So I just want to clarify.
Yep. That's a good clarification. Thank you very much for the question. I mentioned that the Citizens Commission for Performance Measurement and Tax Preferences made that recommendation. They voted to continue the B&O taxation exemption. Okay, that's the commission. JLARC, I don't remember exactly what their recommendation, but it was something along the lines of modifying that to get to the idea of, how do we show that there's a value in Washington state, which I think is the fundamental question you've been asking for quite some time. So being clear, it was the commission that voted to continue the B&O tax exemption in their recommendations.
But continue is different than your statement of no longer treat it as a tax preference. That's all I'm saying. I guess I just would ask is if there is any material information or data that can show that the ratepayers and the taxpayers of Washington are receiving any direct benefit from this preference.
Okay. I will tell you, I learned last night from the general manager of Opalco, or Orcas Allen Power and Light Cooperative, that on their statement from the lending organization that there's a specific line item that says B&O tax. Okay, and since this deduction was put in effect in 2013, that line item isn't there. And as Mr. Brooks probably can explain better than I can, when we consider the co-ops and the cost of service, we know that whatever that charge is, whether it's big or small, is going to be passed on to the consumer because it's part of the cost of service.
If I could just super briefly, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, just keep in mind we have a lot of folks testifying on a number of bills.
I guess I totally appreciate that. I guess I'm just asking, though, that given that it's not public, and given that we don't know what the organization makes and spends, we don't really have any ability to actually prove that. Wouldn't you agree?
I would say that the exact amount that customers are saving is difficult to ascertain exactly what that is. We know just from the way that nonprofits are set up, Senator, that they have to balance out the ledger between profit and loss. They're nonprofit. So obviously if there's more costs, there's going to be a commensurate saving if that cost isn't there.
All right, so one other thing I would mention, to Senator Carlisle's point, we don't have a good fiscal note on this because there are only a few folks that are involved, and therefore it takes a disclosure statement or agreement from those folks so that we can know the true cost. I would submit to you that that's one of the barriers to passing this bill, so I would ask the members that use this exemption if they consider a disclosure statement so that we can have better information and therefore have the knowledge we need to make a decision. So thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
With that, we will end testimony on Senate Bill 5148, and Senator Fortunato is here. So we are going to go down to Senate Joint Resolution 8204. If we could have a brief, and Senator Fortunato, you're welcome to come on up.
Good afternoon, members of the committee. My name is Carrie Graff, staff to the Ways and Means Committee. I'm reporting on Senate Joint Resolution 8204, which amends the state constitution to prohibit taxation of individual income. Currently, Washington does not tax individual income. Though the Washington Constitution does not specifically say income can't be taxed, Washington's Supreme Court has interpreted our Constitution as prohibiting a graduated income tax. Income is defined by the joint resolution as derived from wages, investments, the sale of goods or services, or any other source. That concludes my report, and I'm happy to take any questions.
No questions. Thank you very much. Senator Fortunato, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a good little bill. It just does one simple little thing. It prohibits what people think already is prohibited in the state constitution. People think we can't have a income tax. It's nice if we actually enshrine that in the Constitution. So I ask for your support.
All right.
Any questions?
No questions. Thank you very much. We do have one person signed in to testify remotely, I understand. So
thank you.
Go ahead. Bring them up. There we go. Maybe. So I see three people. Are all of you testifying?
Yes, please, Senator.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, Chairman Braun and members of the committee, for the record, Jason Mercier with the Washington Policy Center. Thank you for the opportunity to testify remotely today on Senate Joint Resolution 8204. I think the importance of the state's income tax ban can be found on a website run by the State Department of Commerce. It's called Choose Washington, used to advertise the state to businesses and individuals. It says you should come to Washington because we offer a competitive advantage found in a few other states. We don't have a personal income tax. Now, staff mentioned that it's due to a 1933 Supreme Court ruling that instituted that ban. And since that time, the legislature has sent the voters 5 constitutional amendments in an effort to create a graduated income tax. Each time, the voters have overwhelmingly rejected that, most recently with a 77% vote saying they don't want a graduated income tax. Since that time, however, supporters of income taxes have taken a new strategy. Failing to do a constitutional amendment, they have proposed initiatives redefining an income tax as an excise tax on the privilege of earning income. And these were dedicated to education spending. Notwithstanding that, the voters have also rejected those. So the last 9 times, the voters have said we don't want an income tax, but we keep seeing efforts to get to a test case to see if they could get 5 justices to overturn that 1933 ruling. Most recently, this occurred in the city of Olympia this past November, with a city-only income tax being proposed. But the supporters of this were very clear. This had nothing to do with the city of Olympia and everything to do with creating a test case to see if we can get that 1933 case overturned. We don't believe this should be a decision left up to the Supreme Court. For 84 years, we have had an income tax ban, and we believe the voters should have the peace of mind that it will remain that way. We would encourage you to keep the state's competitive advantage and move 8204 to the ballot.
Thank you. Go ahead.
My name is Steve Simmons. I'm a businessman in Kennewick. I have 75 employees. I listened to a presentation by past Treasurer McIntyre about an income tax, and part of what he talked about was rolling back B&O tax and rolling back some sales tax. And I got to thinking, I could support a personal income tax if we rolled all of the B&O tax back. However, you know, that I suspect that that's pretty unlikely. The voters of this state have been very adamant about what they feel about a state income tax. I think we should support Joint Resolution 8204, and I think we should make it permanent that we do not have a state income tax. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman and Senators, my name is Bob Tippett. I'm from Pasco, Washington. I have a company here, Tippett Company, and we're involved in predominantly land development and asset ownership. First of all, I want to thank you for providing the pathway to give remote testimony. It's a comfort we don't have to get on the snowy roads. It's going to be spring tomorrow, though. I'd like to come out in support of SJR 8204. I think it does give us a pathway to get to the voters and give them a chance to once again evaluate the income tax. I think it gives us, if that goes in, I think it gives us a competitive disadvantage. So consequently, it would be nice if we could take a fresh look with the voters on this. I would point out that under our current tax system, we're getting a huge increase in revenue. I think that's a testament to the strength of our economy and our current tax system. And so I would like to continue down that pathway. I was reminded this week as I read, and you might want to write this down, under the Investor's Business Daily, under the February 3rd, 2017 issue, it gave a testimony of the number of businesses. There are thousands of businesses leaving California because of being overtaxed and over-regulated. And as a consequence, it has caused middle-income jobs to leave. Nearly 1 million jobs have left, and it's cost billions of dollars in tax revenues. And I'd like to keep that in mind as we consider this bill. Thank you.
Thank you all very much. We have a question from Senator Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Jason, Steve, and Bob, I'm glad you availed yourself of remote testimony. I'm really excited to see you guys there and weighing in on this bill today. And Bob, thank you for those statistics because I think they're particularly telling.
All right. Well, that concludes our testimony on an important little bill, a resolution, I guess. So we will end the hearing on Senate Joint Resolution 8204, and we'll go back up to Senate Bill 5188, and we have a few folks signed in to testify. Heather Hansen, Monty Cobb, and John Eckenreich. If you'd come on up. And then staff, if you'd change the timer to 1 minute, we're running a little bit behind. We need to pick up the pace just a little bit if we're going to get done on time.
Good afternoon. I'm Monty Cobb, Policy Director, Association of County Officials. Ask that you support this bill. The substitute is DOR language. We're perfectly fine with that. What we're trying to deal with is two separate land situations which forest fires and floods treat the same way, but right now in statute they get treated differently by your assessor. So we see this as a parity issue. It arose, as Senator Angels talked about when she did the introduction to the bill, from fires in eastern Washington. But it has a very similar effect for floods in Jefferson County because we now sync these two statutes up. So we believe it's very good. It's not a big income hit to counties either because this is unintended revenue, and you don't plan for disasters. You don't plan to take these things out. So we believe it's a good bill and ask you to move it forward.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Heather Hansen, representing Washington Washington Farm Forestry Association, small forest landowners. Appreciate your support for this bill. It's simply when something happens, it's no fault of the landowners, flood, fire, disaster. We don't want to penalize them when they've already suffered loss. Appreciate the Department of Revenue cleaning up the language, making sure that it works the way it was intended to. Thank you.
Thank you. John?
My name is John Ehrenreich. I'm the Director of Forest Tax Economics for the Washington Forest Protection Association, speaking in favor of Senate Bill 5188, the proposed sub. Occasionally, after very catastrophic and hot wildfires, the soil has been essentially sterilized and you can no longer replant forests. and the land apparently has to come out of designated forest land or open space timber. A few years back when we consolidated the open space timberland into designated forest land, some of the people that were forced over lost that option when they were forced over into designated forest land. This bill provides some equity by giving them back that option.
All right. No questions. Thank you all for testifying. And that will end the hearing on Senate Bill 5188, and we will move on to testimony on Senate Bill 5194. We have 4 folks signed in to testify: Brad Tower, Amy Brackenberry, Carolyn Logue, and Holly Chiza. If you'd all come on up.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Amy Brackenberry on behalf of the Washington Food Industry Association, here to ask for your support of Senate Bill 5194. 2 key points I just want to make about this bill. One, we're not seeking to expand any rights or privileges that don't currently exist in law. We're just trying to streamline some of the duplicative licenses that exist. And since we've moved to privatization, this will help streamline efforts at the agency. Also, Senator Darneal, you had a question earlier about the fiscal amount. I believe there will be an amendment to modify the fee, so it's $316 to reflect the existing combination of the 2 fees associated with those licenses. So this should have it should mitigate the fiscal impact and just be revenue neutral. So ask for your support.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. For the record, Carolyn Logue here on behalf of the Washington Retail Association, also in support of 5194. We too are supporting the idea of having the concept of a combined license, but also not expanding who can sell these products, just trying to do it within the existing. I do have some of the beer and wine specialty stores. Their current fees for both their license together are $266, so going to $316 would be an increase. That's one of the reasons we need to go to that maximum amount on the fiscal amendment to make sure, but some of them are still saying it might even be worthwhile because getting that paperwork reduction would be really important and getting it to 1 license. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. For the record, I'm Holly Chiza, and I'm here on behalf of the Northwest Grocery Association. We also support the bill. Many of my retail sites understand that for liquor licenses for retailers, you don't get a license for the retailer. You have to get a license for each individual store site. And so each one of our store sites can have 1, 2, if not more, depending on the privileges. As Ms. Brackenberry stated, we don't gain any privileges through this. Nothing of that changes. We're just linking the licenses together, and it's actually well timed in that the Liquor Control Board right now is reprogramming a number of their computer systems, and so we're trying to do this at the same time, and we've been working with the board throughout the fall and winter to try and coordinate our efforts to streamline the licenses with their reprogramming of their systems so that we can kind of launch this all at basically the same time or at very similar timelines. I would appreciate your support of the bill.
All right. Come on up, Brad.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon. Brad Tower on behalf of the Washington Liquor Store Association. On first read, we were neutral in this bill, but on second blush, if the intent is for the legislature to create a pathway so that the Liquor and Cannabis Board can actually collapse the number of licenses into a more streamlined set, we would recommend including former state and contract liquor stores as eligible for this particular license type so that we can move down that path in the future. That's my testimony. If there's any interest in it, I'll help provide amending language to the staff.
Have you talked to sponsor about this idea?
I have, and that was how I came to the conclusion that was the ultimate intent of the bill, was to allow for the reduction in the total number of licenses and consolidation.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for testifying. That will end testimony on Senate Bill 5194. And we will move down to Senate Bill 5557. If we could have a brief.
Good afternoon again. For the record, my name is Carrie Graff. Before you is Senate Bill 5557, which extends an existing sales and use tax exemption. Currently, nonprofit gun clubs receive a sales tax exemption on purchases of clay targets. This exemption is scheduled to end July 1st, 2017. This bill extends the exemption to July 1st, 2027. We got a fiscal note this morning, and the revenue impact is $40,000 for the upcoming biennium. That concludes my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
No questions. Senator Rivers would not like to speak to our bill. There is no one signed in to testify, so that will end the hearing on Senate Bill 5557, and we will move on to Substitute Senate Bill 5107.
Senator Braun, members of the committee, for the record, Maria Havdi with committee staff. Substitute Senate Bill 5107 comes by way of the Early Learning and K-12 Committee. For a little bit of background, the Early Childhood Education and Assistance Program provides preschool to 3- and 4-year-olds from families with incomes at or below 110% of the federal poverty level. Current law requires that full implementation of the program be achieved in the 2020-21 school year, at which time any eligible child shall be entitled to enroll in the program. Current law also allows local governments to contribute funds to build capacity and quality in local early care and education programming and to reduce co-payments charged to parents or caregivers. This bill allows school districts, institutions of higher education, and nonprofit organizations, in addition to local governments, to contribute funds to expand access, increase slots, increase quality, and extend hours for early care and education programs. These contributions are not to supplant the funds required by the state to meet the entitlement. It requires Dell to create a local pathway to help these entities use these funds to expand access, increase quality, and extend hours for ECAP programs, existing ECAP programs. To help these entities, Dell will establish a needs assessment, which will determine where investments in early learning are needed and feasible. It will include a funding tool to help in determining estimates of cost, and will include technical assistance. To help the providers, Dell is required to provide information on how best to work with local governments and others for this purpose, and will provide training and technical assistance for them as well. For the 2017-18 school year, the local pathway will be available to a minimum of 5 entities for ECAP providers in good standing, and by December 1st, 2018, Dell must submit a report to the appropriate committees of the legislature describing the effectiveness of the pathway, and must include recommendations for expanding the pathway, including a plan for incorporating Working Connections childcare and home visiting. Funds for this purpose are to be deposited into the Early Start account and shall be tracked separately for each local contributor. There is a fiscal note. The local pathway, costs associated with the local pathway are estimated to be $572,000 in the 2017-19 biennium and $422,000 in each biennium thereafter. There will also be additional administrative costs incurred by the Department of Early Learning as slots are added. And they, in their fiscal note, they projected that for every 1,000 slots added, an additional $265,000 would be needed. I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, looks like we have no questions. And Senator Billig isn't here, so we'll proceed directly to testimony. We have 2 folks signed in, Erica Halleck and Frank Ordway, if you'd come on up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. For the record, my name is Erica Halleck. I'm here today on behalf of Fight Crime, Invest in Kids, and Ready Nation. We represent law enforcement and business leaders interested in increasing access to proven programs. Simply put, this is a great opportunity to capture community interest in expanding access to programs like ECAP. We certainly could see situations where we have local philanthropy, businesses, Rotaries, et cetera, being able to augment what's available in their communities. So thank you very much.
All right, thank you. I don't see Frank, so we're going to end the hearing on Substitute Senate Bill 5107, and we'll open the hearing on Senate Bill 5118, if we may have a brief.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is James Kettle, and I am staff to the committee. By way of background, Medicaid clients are required to contribute toward the cost of their long-term care. These clients, however, are allowed to keep a portion of their income. The portion of their income that they are allowed to keep is commonly called the Personal Needs Allowance, or the PNA. The bulk of individuals with a PNA live in nursing homes, institutions, or residential settings. The PNA for persons living in nursing homes or institutions is $57.28 per month. The PNA for persons in residential care, which would be things like adult family homes or assisted living, is $62.79 per month. Currently, the PNA does not automatically change to reflect cost of living. Instead, it takes an act of the legislature to adjust the PNA, and the PNA has not been adjusted for roughly a decade. For bill summary, subject to appropriation, the P&A must be adjusted annually, and the adjustment must be based on the percentage cost of living adjustment for Social Security. In terms of fiscal detail, a fiscal note has been received for DSHS. For the fiscal note, DSHS used a 10-year average for the Social Security COLA, roughly 1% increase each fiscal year. This change would impact clients throughout the agency, but the bulk of the cost would be in the long-term care program for clients living in, again, nursing homes, assisted living, or adult family homes. The estimated cost is $300,000 in the 2017-19 biennium, with roughly half coming from state funds and half from Medicaid. And the ongoing cost would be roughly $400,000, again, roughly half coming from state funds. The Washington Department of Veterans Affairs is still preparing a fiscal estimate for the residents of the state veterans homes, and that estimate hasn't been provided yet, but it should not be a major impact given the number of clients impacted. Happy to answer any questions.
No questions. Senator Rolfes has stepped out, so we'll proceed directly to testimony. We have 4 folks signed in: Lauren Freeman, Hilke Faber, Vicki Elting, and Joanna Grist. And Senator Rolfes, would you like to speak to your bill?
I think these guys are going to be able to speak to my bill just fine.
Great.
Thank you. Good luck. Carry it forward.
For the record, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, my name is Lauren Michael Freeman, and I am here as a citizen, as a father of a young lady who's looking at adult family home situation. And we wish this bill had been passed 10 years ago, then we wouldn't be in the hole we're in right now. But the $62.79 comes out to somewhere in the neighborhood of $2.17 a day. And all of the families and all of the people with developmental disabilities who are under this limit are asking me all the time, where can I buy my autonomy and personal dignity for $2.17 a day? And we just need to figure out a better way of addressing how we have people with developmental disabilities in the community buying themselves a home and community-based experience on this kind of paltry amount of money. Thank you. That's all I have time for.
Thank you. Go ahead.
My name is Hilke Faber, and I'm the founder of the Resident Councils of Washington, and actually the first regional ombudsman from King County in '78. So I've been around a while, and I've been working on this issue with the residents for many years. And we've had 2 increases since that time, 1978. And I don't want to repeat what was said, but really we're looking at the respect and dignity of individuals, that they have some control over their personal expenses that they can use to prioritize whatever few things that they can get, like even a gift for a family member or a subscription to a magazine, or even their phone. So I guess I want to just urge you to finally, again, after 10 years, to think about these residents who could be a family member of yours in any one of these settings and help improve the quality of their lives. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Vicki Elting, and I am, members of the committee, Vicki Elting, and I am the Assistant State Long-Term Care Ombudsman. And I have been working in this field for about 25 years, and I talk to residents every day who are in the position of trying to make ends meet on $62 a month. I did the math in my head, and I think 1% is about $6 a month. So we're talking going from about $60 to $66. So I, in my mind, can't figure out why we wouldn't do this. Thank you.
Can I just?
Go ahead.
Just keep in mind, this is the cost of living adjustment that all that comes with our Social Security check. That Social Security check gets turned over to the state, and then the little piece of COLA is kept by the resident. So I guess my point is, you see, so this is really rightfully their money, and they need to keep that just to preserve, again, their dignity and respect. And the other thing, I just want to wish you all happy Valentine's Day. And this is really a heartfelt wish that you can grant to all the residents, too, in long-term care.
All right, thank you all very much. Come on up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee for this opportunity to testify in support of the personal needs allowance increase. My name is Joanna Grist, and I'm here representing AARP. This bill is a top priority for us this legislative session. And first of all, I wanted to say, I believe it's actually only 60 cents increase, not $6. So it would just be an additional 60 cents on top of the 57 or 62. So when Social Security provides a COLA, it's intended to help their beneficiaries cover rising prices. Right now, as was explained, the state is keeping that share. And it's a critical piece of human dignity for people to be able to afford clothing, haircuts, personal items like shampoo, greeting cards for their grandkids, maybe a movie or a lunch with a friend one time a month. And so I hope you will support this increase. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So that will end testimony on Senate Bill 5118. We will move on to Senate Bill 5599.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, again, James Kettle, committee staff. By way of background on Senate Bill 5599, in fiscal year 17, all home care agencies received $3.46 per hour in their rate to pay for health benefits. The hour contribution is bargained in the collective bargaining agreement for individual providers and provided to agencies through the parity statute. About 30% of home care agencies either purchase health benefits for employees independently or do not provide health benefits for employees. If an agency does not offer health benefits, then this information has to be disclosed to DSHS, and the unused funds must be returned to the state. If an agency offers health benefits and the cost is less than the funding provided, then the difference must be returned to the state. The remaining 70% of home care agencies and all individual providers who qualify for health benefits and elect to receive health benefits receive those benefits from a multi-employer health benefits trust. The Multi-Employer Health Benefits Trust, as a Taft-Hartley trust, falls under the oversight of the United States Department of Labor. Trust operations and reporting requirements are governed by federal statute, the Employee Retirement Income Security Act, also known as ERISA. The trust is currently not required to provide information about unused funds to the state, and the trust is not currently required to return unused funds to the state. So as a bill summary, under this bill, all recipients of health benefit funds, including the Multi-Employer Health Benefits Trust, will be required to keep monthly records of revenue and expenditures. Each year, all recipients of health benefit funds would receive an independent audit of financial information. After completing the annual audit within 30 days, all recipients of health benefit funds would be required to return unused funding for health benefits to the state, and if the funds are not returned, then DSHS is directed to treat the situation as a vendor overpayment and commence financial recovery procedures. And lastly, if the funds are not recovered, then DSHS must terminate its contract with the entity. In terms of fiscal detail, the fiscal note came late in the day. I don't believe it's in your packets, but it has been received. DSHS has indicated indeterminate impact. The agency read of the bill is that ERISA and court decisions prohibit any effort to control, direct, supervise, or regulate these type of health benefits. And the agency read of the bill is that the state is not able to require the trust to return unspent funds to the state, assess overpayments if funds are not returned, require an independent audit of the trust, or authorize DSHS to audit the trust. And that concludes my remarks. I'm happy to take questions.
No questions. Thank you very much for the brief. We have 5 folks signed in to testify. I'll just call them all out and you can cycle through. Lauren Freeman, Marissa Clyde, Galen Lee, Luke Esser, and Jennifer Kemper.
Thank you, committee and chair. My name is Jennifer Kemper. I was a home care agency owner for 24 years with Kemper Services. Recently closed down this in 2016. I'm in support of this bill because Medicaid funds should be used for their designated purposes. These funds allocated that provide health care benefits to caregivers serving the Medicaid client should be spent accordingly. Any funds not spent for this purpose should be returned to the state. This safeguards the use of tax dollars and encourages all funds to be spent to the benefits that they've been earmarked for the disabled, aging. The non-union home care agencies already document the use of these excess funds. However, because there is no statutory or regulatory framework of these requirements, passing 559 would help formalize and standardize the process and give agencies an administrative hearing process for disputes. Unionized agencies and the SEIU Health Benefits Trust should be held to the same standard and similarly required to document their use of the AWHI funds and refund any excess to the general fund because they haven't been. So based on the numbers that we've looked at from 2013 to 16, the DSH has collected a total of $5 million plus from the non-union home care agencies, averaging $1.2 million per year. In the same time period, SEIU Healthcare Trust had an average of $4.7 million in cash left over at the end. At the end of 2015, SEIU Healthcare Trust had a cash balance of $23.9 million in its net assets at the end of 2015, including accounts receivable of $41.7 million. So from 2011 through 15, the Healthcare Trust total revenue increased by 48.3%, the amount of benefits paid out increased by 43.4%, and its administrative expenses increased by 145%. So much of the SEIU's Healthcare Trust administrative expenses are paid to SEIU 775 and SEIU Training Partnership by the union. From 2011 through 15, the trust paid two groups at least $6.2 million. Some funds the state pays the SEIU's Healthcare Trust are ultimately used for political activity. From 2011 through 15, the trust paid over $1,100,000 directly to SEIU 775. Over the same time period, paid out over $5 million to the SEIU Training Partnership, and from
I would ask you to wrap up.
2013 to 16, over $3 million. All of the state contracted agencies that are unionized or not sign the same contracts. It's supposed to be uniformed. Prior to 2012, whatever amount was paid in health care was reimbursed the next month, so there was no excess. So,
Senator Kaiser.
Huh?
Senator Kaiser has a question.
Thank you, Mr.
Yes,
Chair.
ma'am.
I saw you were reading. I'd like you to please give a copy of your comments to staff for us to see.
Yeah. I would just like to say that because of what I
Ma'am,
feel.
I'd ask you to wrap up. We've already gone well over time.
Yeah, the discrimination of non-unionized agencies. I'll give you a copy that on the independent audits required by the non-unionized agencies are upwards of $55,000 by a separate CEA.
Go ahead, please. Go ahead.
That's okay.
For the record, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, my name is Lauren Michael Freeman. I'm an individual provider, a dad, a guardian. I'm concerned over the retaining of excess payments by the union for health and benefits that aren't being used for health and benefit products. I currently don't put in enough hours to get any benefit from the Health and Benefits Trust, but I'm contributing. My hours are contributing. And unless there is some kind of reconciliation, some attention to this detail, the union will never have an incentive to actually use the funds for the purpose for which the funds are expended. Not only that, but the accumulation of excess funds, $5 million a year, $20 million, $40 million, whatever it is, it creates this slush fund of Medicaid money, and it is Medicaid money until it's used for the purpose for which it's appropriated. That money is an attraction to do things that are not appropriate with Medicaid federal money, and I just want you to be aware that this, I have no idea where this is going to go, but I'm sensitized to this whole issue because years ago I was a Teamster, and the Health and Benefits Trust built up in that situation and to such an extent that it became attractive to become a bank for organized crime. I'm not saying that's where we're headed, but the temptations of these massive amounts of money that are set aside are just trouble in escrow. Thank you.
Thank you. Come on up, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, my name is Luke Esser, representing SEIU 775, the union which represents home care workers, which is a separate entity structurally and financially from the SEIU 775 benefits group, which is a Taft-Hartley trust authorized under federal law, with a governing board that is comprised half of worker representatives and half of employer representatives. And I hope you'll have a chance to talk to the employer representatives on this issue as well. I signed in other today because we are always looking to find the common ground. And while SEIU 775 is concerned that the bill as currently written would have on the ability of the benefits group to provide quality health care benefits, we do share a common goal with much of the intent language in the bill. The first section of the bill describes an intent to, quote, maximize the number of workers receiving health care benefits and the quality of such benefits. And SEIU 775 stands ready to march shoulder to shoulder with anybody who wants to provide better health care benefits to home care workers who serve our vulnerable seniors and individuals with disabilities. We don't understand how sweeping funds out of the accounts of the benefits group will help to meet that goal, but we look forward to continuing the conversation and working to provide better health care benefits moving forward. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Marissa Clyde, and I'm the Managing Director of the SEIU 775 Health Benefits Trust. I'm here to express our opposition to this bill. The Health Benefits Trust is a Taft-Hartley ERISA trust formed by SEIU 775 and participating employers, including the state of Washington. As was previously stated, we are a separate entity from 775 and governed by a separate board of trustees. We're responsible for providing medical, vision, and dental benefits to 17,000 long-term care workers. The trust is a self-funded purchaser, which saves money and also allows for flexibility in benefit design, but that requires building a reserve. It is imperative that adequate reserves are maintained to pay for fluctuations in claims costs. By becoming a self-funded purchaser, the trust was able to keep costs low and reinvest the savings to ensure more workers, reducing the wait time to obtain coverage, keeping copays and premiums low, and reducing barriers to care. The trust also funds health and wellness programs that have resulted in decreasing unnecessary ER visits by 27%, increasing primary care visits by 24%, and decreasing hospital admission rates by 14%, with targeted population health programs that improve the management of chronic diseases and the overall health of the population.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can you tell me what how big your reserve is right now?
Sure.
What's the size of the reserve? Yeah.
Yeah, our current reserve is, we just became self-funded, and our current reserve is about $75 million.
Great, thank you. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Galen Lee, and I am an employee benefits consultant, and I'm here today listed as other to provide my professional opinion as regard to this bill. I've been working with self-funded plans for over 9 years, and I've been working with the Health Benefits Trust since joining DiMartino Associates back in 2011. So a couple of points regarding this reserve that is held by the trust as of today. As Marissa mentioned, the trust has become self-funded as of August 1st, 2016. The Washington State OFM acknowledged the needs of having reserves for self-funded plans such as the Health Benefits Trust, and it is recommended to have at least 16 weeks of reserves held. These reserves are used for terminal liability, used for claims fluctuation, and also used to manage catastrophic events that might happen to the plan. So it is definitely normal and usual for this trust to have such reserves.
So you get 16 weeks of reserve?
At least 16 weeks.
And how much is that?
I do not have that information as of today.
Could you provide that to the staff? I mean, how does that relate to the $75 million in reserve?
I don't have that information right now.
Yeah, if you could just follow up with that, that'd be great. I'd ask you to just wrap up then.
Sure. And finally, is just that single employers and other government entities possibly have a general fund to help fund claims fluctuations and other purposes for the reserve, but Taft-Hartley Trust, like the HBT, does not have that opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Frock.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Two questions. You said OFM, is it an OIC requirement? Is it an insurance requirement? Because as a self-insured plan, or do I have that wrong?
Because
the reserve.
The reserve is an OFM requirement and not an OIC requirement.
Right. And then the question I have is, could you elaborate to the committee on the savings that you have provided to through the group health emergency room work that you've done with your employees? By the way, you only cover single employees, right? There's no family coverage. Is that right? So these are individual providers, and they're the only ones who are getting coverage. Is that right?
That's correct. It's individual providers and agency providers.
Can you tell us about the emergency room savings? That's a very important point.
Sure. We have done a lot of initiatives to make sure that people are appropriately utilizing care. So instead of going to the emergency room, they are going to an urgent care or are paneled with their primary care physician, which is a much more cost-effective method to use healthcare. And so we've been able to obtain substantial savings, the 27% over the past 4 years, reduction in emergency room costs.
How much in dollar terms is that?
I don't have the dollar term, but I can definitely provide that.
All right, Senator Conway.
I guess I want to look, even though you expressed an interest in working with us, which I agree with, I'm trying to understand the ERISA law here. And usually the states do not regulate ERISA plans. That is a fundamental fact of life here, that that the state does not have the authority to regulate these ERISA plans. So, well, I guess what I'm trying to understand here, I recognize the willingness to work with us on this, but could someone explain to me the line here which we can regulate, given that this is an ERISA plan? I guess I'd ask the person who testified on that, our staff member, that question as much as anything.
So just keep in mind, we still have an executive session, and is this something we can follow up after
We'll follow up. I can follow up on it. I just want to raise the issue here with the committee. This is a ERISA plan, and
we know it's an ERISA plan. That was part of the brief.
Right.
Great. Thank you. Thank you all for being here, and that will end testimony on Senate Bill 5599. We'll wrap up with Senate Bill 5070. If we could have a brief.
Good afternoon, members of the committee. Jeff Mitchell, staff with the committee. With me here is Alia Kennedy. Alia will speak to the policy in the bill, and then I will speak to the fiscal impact.
Again, Alia Kennedy, staff to the Education Committee. Brief background, paraeducators are classified staff who perform a variety of functions under the supervision of a teacher. There are no state requirements regarding the educational qualifications of paraeducators. However, the Office of the Superintendent of Public Instruction has developed recommended core competencies and guidelines. In 2014, the legislature directed the Professional Educator Standards Board to convene a work group to establish statewide minimum employment standards for paraeducators and a pathway for teacher preparation certification. The bill before you implements recommendations of the work group as follows: adopts statewide minimum employee standards for paraeducators, establishes a paraeducator advisory board to administer policies and rules for paraeducator preparation and certification, provides for volunteer school districts to field test new paraeducator programs, requires school districts to begin implementing the paraeducator certification and professional development standards by September 1st, 2019, requires the Professional Educator Standards Board to design and implement a training program for teachers and principals as it relates to their role in working with paraeducators, requires the development of an advanced paraeducator endorsement training modules and renewal process, adds new standards to the Paraeducator Associates of Arts degrees and community and technical college apprenticeship programs, and directs the Institute for Public Policy to conduct a study on the effectiveness of paraeducators in improving student outcomes. The committee heard this bill last session, and it also heard it as part of Senate Bill 5607. And with that, I'll turn it over to Jeff.
The fiscal note estimates an expenditure impact of approximately $2 million per biennium, starting with the 2017-19 biennium. The majority of the impact is due to an assumption that OSPI would require 5 FTEs to facilitate the new board for paraeducators, administer the certification office, and develop the training program. In the 2017-19 biennium, there is also a $250,000 grants for the pilot program. The bill authorizes the board to establish certification fees paid by paraeducators. It is assumed that starting in the next biennium, these fees would largely offset the expenditure impacts in the bill. With that, we'd be happy to respond to questions.
Senator Office.
Just a quick question, because I think a lot of us are familiar with this. Is there anything different about this bill versus the bill we passed out of this committee last year and sent over to the House, other than dates?
No.
Senator Hoskawa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this requires paraeducators to achieve some sort of certification. Is that right? And is it for existing paraeducators, and does it provide resources to help those paraeducators finance that education?
That's correct.
Thank you.
All right, great. Thank you very much. We have two folks signed in to testify. Lucinda Young and Doug Nelson. Come on up.
Go ahead. Okay. Good afternoon, Chair Braun and members of the committee. I'm Lucinda Young, representing the Washington Education Association, and speaking in opposition to a portion of Senate Bill 5070, specifically the piece that requires certification. Our paraeducators want a high-quality, funded, and permanent statewide professional development system that meets the standards as outlined in the bill, which came from the Paraeducator Work Group report. The coursework needs to be accessible across the state, and we think ideally the state would fund school districts for the time the paraeducators would take the courses, therefore ensuring that all of them were able to take the courses. They do not specifically want a certification system. We read this bill as they would be paying for their courses that are yet to be developed. They would also have perhaps a $100 certification fee on top of the money they're already paying for their criminal background check. They are worried about losing their jobs because they are worried they can't afford the training. And so quickly in closing, they very much want a professional development system because they know that will help them, therefore it would help their students. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Chairman Braun, members of the committee, Doug Nelson representing Public School Employees of Washington. I just wanted to say, yes, this bill has passed the committee for the last 2 years. It is the same versions. I just wanted to say, I gave you a handout. I want you to know that paraeducators work in the Opportunity Gap programs to the tune of 62% of the hours of instruction. School districts last year eliminated 200,000 hours of teacher time and added 930,000 hours of paraeducator time in the Opportunity Gap. It's important that you know that those paraeducators have no standards and no training, according to the school districts. Now, you guys are spending, and the federal government, $1.7 billion a year on these programs to help students succeed. Now, how can you do that if you don't take the role of paraeducators seriously? This bill is about taking them seriously. If you want to fix the teacher shortage, paraeducators are an answer, not the answer. If you have problems with school construction and all the classrooms you're going to build, paraeducators are an answer. High quality, highly trained paraeducators. I hope that you can support this bill again. Thank you.
Thank you. No questions. Thank you very much for your testimony. That will end our hearing on Senate Bill 5070, and that will end our hearings for the day. We're going to go at ease for a few minutes for a quick caucus, and we're going to come back and do a quick executive session. Back in order. Executive session. Staff, we can have a brief on Senate Bill 5061.
That's been,
Oh, we are doing 5061.
Oh, sorry, we're setting aside 5061. Can we have a brief on 5276? Can't read my own writing.
Senator Braun, members of the committee, Amanda Cecil, staff to the committee. This is 5276 is the bill that came forward from the Select Committee on Pension Policy that allows people that are 60 or older when they become eligible for a retirement plan to opt out. There is a proposed substitute that's different than the bill that was heard, which includes a null and void clause if funding isn't provided.
Mr. Chair, I move proposed substitute Senate Bill 5276 with a due pass recommendation to the Rules Committee.
It's moved and seconded. Any discussion? No discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed nay. Senate Bill 5276 is passed out to rules. We could have a brief on Senate Bill 5066.
The Senate Bill 5066 was heard on, I believe, Monday of this week. This would require agencies to conduct zero-based budget reviews as directed by the legislature, either in an Appropriation Act or another bill. There are no known amendments.
Mr. Chair, I move proposed substitute Senate Bill 5066 with a due pass recommendation to the Rules Committee.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed nay. Senate Bill 5066 is passed to Rules Committee.
The next bill is Senate Bill 5346 that would create the Gina Bull Memorial Legislative Page Scholarship Program. There is a proposed sub that's been distributed on canary paper. The effect of the proposed sub is to allow the account to retain its interest and investment earnings.
Mr. Chair, I move proposed substitute Senate Bill 5346 with a due pass recommendation to the Rules Committee.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. All opposed nay. Senate Bill 5346 is passed to Rules Committee.
Senate Bill 5370 would require the Joint Legislative and Audit Review Committee to do a review of federal funding programs in excess of $25 million each biennium related to health and human services or public schools to identify conditions that may require changes in state law for the receipt of the federal funds. There is a proposed sub on blue paper. This makes the review subject to appropriation. The fiscal impact of the bill was estimated to be around $525,000 to conduct the first review.
Mr. Chair, I move proposed substitute Senate Bill 5370 with a due pass recommendation to the Rules Committee.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed nay. Senate Bill 5370 is passed to Rules Committee.
The next bill is Senate Bill 5443. This bill would create dynamic fiscal notes, allow for legislators who serve on the fiscal committees of the legislature to request dynamic fiscal notes or dynamic fiscal statements on bills related to corrections, human services, and mental health that are in excess of $5 million. It also creates a work group that would review fiscal notes and their accuracy, as well as assess whether a nonpartisan agency should assume that function. There is a proposed substitute that's on ivory paper offered by Senator Brown. It does three things. The first, clarifying that the Washington Institute of Public Policy will staff the work group. It requires the work group to consider using the Washington Institute for Public Policy, the Legislative Evaluation and Accountability Program Committee, or a new nonpartisan agency to provide fiscal analysis of proposed bills, and also changes the due date for the work group and their recommendations from December 1st of 2017 to December 1st of 2018.
Mr. Chair, I move proposed substitute Senate Bill 5443 with a due pass recommendation to the Rules Committee.
There's a motion and second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed nay. Senate Bill 5443 is passed to Rules Committee. With that, we will come out of executive session, and we just remind everybody to sign the boards before you leave, and we are adjourned.